And now it's time for the Doc and Pimpy Show with your host, Doc, and the man who should be committed, Pimpy.
The idea of blockchain, digital currency, the way that works.
The future.
The future. It
Yes.
actually is the future. It's amazing how well he presented that.
Even the most amateur person could come over there and hear what Gunther has to say and realize the direction we're going into. And it, in my opinion, is the right direction for the new monetary system.
Blocks are just containers of data. That's all they are. Chains connect those containers. So a blockchain, another way to look at a blockchain is it's a record book of transactions, and ledgers are many record books of transactions.
Okay.
There's many different types of blockchains, many different types of ledgers. There's direct acyclic graphs. There's all kinds of stuff. But that's the basics of this. Now, the interesting part about this, and this is one of the problems with Bitcoin, for example, and I'll get further into the mathematics, why the math of Bitcoin is problematic, which will reveal a lot about where cryptocurrencies need to go. But you actually have, with pseudo-anonymous transactions, right, where you don't give your personal information or you're not identified up front, there's a ton of counterparty risk. Over 60% of online transactions are synthetics or fakes. This is a fact. So it is true that there's actually more money laundering going on with things like Bitcoin than not. Now, I'm not poo-pooing Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a wonderful invention, and there's a lot of amazing uses. You can borrow against it. You can rehypothecate it. You can fractionalize it. You can lend to your friends. It has a lot of value there, but the way it's being used is not necessarily a great thing. And as long as those transactions are not transparent, in other words, trustless, you have counterparty risk, and ultimately it's an unstable unit of account. This is why Bitcoin, as it inflates in value, is spent less. Now, there's nothing wrong with holding on to a speculative commodity, which is what Bitcoin is, but it's not a currency. It's not really a programmable form of money in the way that you would look at other forms of programmable money. It's an asset that's speculatively traded, that's being used in creative ways. That's fantastic. But Bitcoin is not the future of cryptocurrencies, okay? I don't care what anybody says. And I can mathematically prove it to you. I'll do it in this presentation. Sure. But that's just a fact, and I'm just laying it out.
Is there any particular crypto that catches your attention? You go, Hey, look, I want to talk about this Amber Lolli product again. Whenever something good comes along, I do want to talk about this. My neck, I had a kink in my neck from hell, and the pain it gets to the point where you get headaches. So I just grabbed the cream and I rubbed that crap on the back of my neck. After a while, you don't even realize that the pain is gone. You're just going, and how we are several hours later, and there's no pain. And it works really quick. I like that. So joint pain and muscles, sore muscles, nice. And then here's the thing about me. I get offered all the time. People want to come on, they want to be sponsors, they want to be this. My thing is, if I don't use your product, I'm not interested. I can sell out everything and make a ton of money, but no, my subscribers to me are very important. But this product here, absolutely, I'm going to endorse this. I like it a lot. AmberLolli.com. Is there any particular crypto that catches your attention? You go, you know what, this, if I had to choose.
No, I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna lay out the fundamentals for you. People can make their own decisions. Okay. I don't give investment advice per se, and I don't promote specific. I don't do any of that stuff. I don't have a social media account. I'm not pumping and dumping shit. I don't get into any of those games at all. I won't do it. So by the time we're done with this discussion, you'll probably have a good idea of what an asset-backed cryptocurrency is. Okay. So that's the term, asset-backed cryptocurrency.
Gotcha.
I'm talking about encrypted money or encrypted currency, sound currency that is backed or represents a real asset. And I will show you what that looks like. That's really important.
Nice.
So when things are transparent, okay?
Yes.
Transparency is key. It's actually secure because there's no counterparty risk. You and I are exchanging something. I know you, you know me. Our identities are verified. okay? We make it an exchange, and even though we'll hide some of that information, the actual transaction could go on a private ledger with a private key. At least our interaction has been transparently ledgered. Sure. This is not happening overall, right? This is the problem with finance in general, and this is what we need to change. So does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. So the other thing that's really important here, and this is part of the reason why things like the Bitcoin blockchain have a lot of problems, okay? Ethereum's a little bit different. Layer 2 has already come out. Groups started we started developing on that last year. Ethereum is an excellent developer network, very different in terms of proof of stake versus proof of work. But in general, the more nodes you have in a crypto network, the weaker the network becomes. Doesn't matter if you're forking or coin halving or splitting or doing any of those things. That's a fact. And the reason why is because with the mathematics behind most crypto networks, you need provable collisions, okay? Provable collisioning is the way that you substantiate and you support network transactions, okay? That's basically the litmus test for these things. So when you're talking about SHAs, so SHA-256 is the Bitcoin blockchain. You have SHA-1, SHA-2, and SHA-3. Now with SHA-3, and I'll show you what this means, you have multiple attribution and no need for mining. You don't need to mine, right? So it's so funny how people are talking about Bitcoin mining and saving on energy. And it's like, dude, you don't need to use those relative consensus mechanisms. You don't need to use those mining mechanisms because you don't have to mine with the evolved protocols. So basically what's happening is you've got different hash sizes and blocks, and they do things like squeezing bits and bytes and all that stuff. So all of these protocols are evolving, but they're evolving away from mining, right? They're getting more advanced over time. And the reality is you don't need to mine. It's just bottom line. Now with NFTs, for example, we mint. So we can mint on a factory, we can reduce or remove transaction costs. Even though there's gas fees on Ethereum, for example, but there's workarounds for that, things like that. So anyways, this is all moving very fast away from the notions of a Bitcoin blockchain or a Bitcoin or a Lightning network or any of that stuff. So with crypto networks in general, you've got throttled transaction speeds and poor node configuration and trustless issues, all this stuff I mentioned, which leads to things like crypto hacking. And I'm telling you, when people say that the blockchain can't be hacked or Bitcoin can't be hacked, that's complete nonsense.
Right.
Okay? Which is not true.
We know it's true because we see articles about it. We've read articles about it.
Yeah, I think from you.
Yeah, actually.
Maybe. Yeah. Sure. Okay, so this is really important right here. I'm gonna explain to you what we're looking at. Here is the Bitcoin math problem. It's called an NP problem or an NP hard problem, which involves what's called non-deterministic polynomial time. Okay, in removing the technical jargon, all right, what that means is you have a set of 7 or 8 linear math problems that are very complex, which apparently can't be solved by a linear solution. So, for example, if you were to try to solve a meet in the middle attack on SHA-256, it would take you 100 years or 1,000 years to solve it in a linear way. Well, the reality is you don't solve linear math problems in a linear way. You solve it in a nonlinear way, right? So this is an example of nonlinear factorization called superprime factoring. And in essence, what we do is we take the number of linear operations in a pre-image or meet-in-the-middle attack on a SHA-256, which is the Bitcoin blockchain, and we say, okay, how many linear operations are there? What is the superprime? And how do we get to a deficient natural number that is larger than the sum of its proper divisors? Now, I'm not going to show anybody how to run these operations, but this is literally how you hack SHA-256. This is how you do it, okay? So, and it's funny because when I've worked, I had a kid try to steal my crypto. I don't store any of my crypto online. I put it in cold storage wallets, right? But he got my email, he hacked into my AT&T stuff, got my stuff. They pulled out my SIM card. They were going to try to go in. And when I talked to the DA in New York, he's like, oh yeah, we were able to track all this stuff, and they were even able to track even the pseudo-anonymous transactions on the SHA-2 blockchain, right? So it's totally fallacy to say that you can't track people's movements through this system, that you can hack it. There's any number of ways to do it, but you do it primarily through nonlinear factorization.
So total anonymity is not reality.
Total anonymity is not reality, but more importantly, the NP problem behind Bitcoin inevitably takes it to zero, because zero is infinity, right?
Yes.
There's no top and there's also no floor to Bitcoin pricing. So at some point it's going to go to zero. That's the way it's mathematically constructed.
Well, now that you got derivatives and you got, futures contracts, the net is always zero. So that's why I tell people.
That is always zero.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you want, this is a hashing mechanism I developed called holonomials, and it's quantum fault tolerant and resistant. What do I mean by that? When the level of transactions exceeds what the network can hold, and we need to be able to slow down them using super prime or root prime factoring, and we can create a 1-bit succinct binary representation of those numbers. This is what this looks like in terms of blocks. Then we have something that can protect at the encryption level the transactions that are happening in a network. And this happens also at a node. So we built our technology with Rare on nodes, okay? And everything is going node level, but we have node level autonomy. So that node has the same computing capability of an entire network in that one node. That's where this is going, okay?
In one node, I'm
going to show you a couple other cool things. So when people talk about quantum syntax, okay, quantum syntax exists. There's the Microsoft version of quantum syntax. There is the quantum computational version of quantum syntax, which takes on many forms. What's the gentleman we talked about who came up with
Russell J. Gold?
Syntax? Yeah, like that shit's real, and his stuff works. Like he's legitimate. It works in a court of law. Well, I can take that language and I could set up a programmable set of functions for this. So let me give you one example. This is a fractal set that's a programmable function in the top left corner. It's a set of equations. I created a programmable corpus through, it's an investigative corpus, basically on investigating a story. Here's the JavaScript, a command line function, and then I combine them to form a new programmable quantum syntax language. I just did this on my own, right? This is quantum syntax, merging math and language. This is where everything is headed. So if you think about this example and you apply this to a search engine, now you have a totally different way of searching. The Google search algorithm cannot improve itself. It gets progressively worse with each query on the semantic web, because every time you make a query, it creates a new semantic web page. This does the exact opposite.
Nice.
Okay. So these are really good examples of quantum computation, and why I would just call bullshit on anybody who says that there's one way to do a quantum financial system.
So look, if you like what you're hearing and you want to hear the full interview, come over to Pimpy's News Network and hear the full interview. So if you like what you see, come on over there. We know that if you subscribe to the channel, all proceeds go to finding life's purpose. So it's a donation, it's to a good cause. So I encourage you to do so.